John. Are you in the room? There's a European man on the phone for you, and are you making a number one, or are you making a number two? Hello again, everyone. Sarah, how are you doing?
I'm well, and how are you?
Okay. Not like we've seen each other for ages, eh?
That's true. Very true.
Yeah. So this morning we had an interesting conversation. We're talking about radio jockeys, or RJs as they're called, or some people call them radio DJs.
Right.
And we're talking about how they change their voices when they talk, and just to put things into perspective, I can remember, I put my glasses on, sorry, sunglasses. Sun is a bit of a glare. Did you put yours on as well?
No, I'm very mild.
Oh, okay.
Test the glasses.
Yeah, so we're still driving through the roads where there's been flood damage and landslides and mud slides onto the road and so forth. So as we're doing this video, there may be some disruption as we try to maneuver ourselves through all of these. But anyway, going to the topic for today's video. So what were we talking about this morning?
The radio DJs and how they change their voice when they're on air.
Yeah, I can. When we were chatting, that brought to mind years back. You remember when I was interviewed on radio for something that I was doing, when I was doing some production, and I was on radio, and I'm not going to mention the DJ's name, but you know very well who I'm talking about.
Right.
So anyhow, this DJ, or RJ as they popularly called, the radio jockey, we're having a good old chat.
This
prior
is
off air, but prior to us even going on air. Oops, sorry. These roads are really terrible after the floods. But anyhow, so he began chatting to me, and we were quite normal in our conversation, and then we go on air.
Mm-hmm.
And he was talking very much in the same tone of voice that I'm talking now.
Right.
And then he goes on air and he's like, hello, this is so and so, and we're in the company, we've got a guest artist, we've got Harnam and I was like so amazed, because I'm thinking this is like two different people now.
Yes.
And I remember the same day, I think, that same evening after the interview on radio, when I came home, and I told you, I was like so amazed, because it's like two different people.
Is that his natural voice? Yeah.
Yeah, and when we hear these guys on radio, quite often, we don't realize that they have a radio voice.
Yes.
Because we actually think, okay, they're on there because that's naturally
That's all the time. That's the way they speak.
So we were having a good laugh about it, and this morning we heard something on radio, and then we began laughing about it, and that's how this topic came about for this video. And you were asking me some questions.
Yes.
What were you asking?
Well, for some reason I was thinking about two radio DJs. They were comedians. They used to do a very comical slot on Saturdays, and they had this one thing where they had a phone call. It was like a phone call, and where the one DJ, is answering the telephone, and the person who the phone call for was obviously, not around. So he answers the phone and he asks the person, who it's supposed to be for the call, you in the toilet, are you doing a number, are you making a number one, or are you making a number two? And he says, like, just say the person's name is John. John, there's a European man on the phone. Are you making a number one? Are you making a number two? Then I asked hubby if he can do that in a radio DJ voice, and it was a big joke for us.
So I responded by saying, John, are you in the room? There's a European man on the phone for you, are you making a number one? Or are you making a number two? And quite often you hear the radio jockeys laugh as well on air, and you wonder what's the joke. So I just try to build the laugh in. So, well, for those of you who don't understand what's a number one or number two, number one is if you're gonna you're gonna make a pee, and number two if you're gonna do a dunk.
or a poo.
Yeah, but anyway, so we just thought the funny side of it, because
It was so hilarious. We couldn't stop laughing for a few minutes at home, just the two of us. But it was hilarious just thinking of that.
yeah, and can you imagine this guy going to visit family or friends, and they all know him, and he's speaking with a normal voice like this, and then maybe in the next 2 hours or so after visiting family, he's now sitting on radio, and they're all eager to listen to him, and they say, oh, it's ages since we listened to our relative, and here he comes on with his radio persona. And I'm not saying it's wrong.
Yes.
I mean, if that makes them money, then good, go for it. But I'm sorry, it is a bit hilarious, and especially the shock that I got when I was interviewed on radio, and then in the midst of the interview that we were talking about, we went on an ad break, and I was just doing some of my own stuff, taking notes, and then he just said, listen, this is what we're going to tackle, and speaking in his normal voice, by the way, and he said, this is the approach we're going to use with the interview now. Are you comfortable with that? And I said, I'm fine with that. And he said it was quite a straightforward conversation, and then he comes back, and again with that laugh, and I still don't know about that laugh and why that laugh came about. And I can still remember it. He came on and he said, having a good time behind the scene, off air with Harnam Kumar, having a good, like we're having a party. and I'm thinking, was it that fun? I mean, we were just talking about what we're going to discuss next. I didn't realize it was that fun. Wow. So a lot of, and maybe if there's radio jockeys who are listening to this video, I don't know if we have what kind of audience. I know we have audiences from India, South Africa, and so forth, but wherever you may be, we would love to hear your comments on that. And I don't mean to sound mean, but I'm sure a lot of people have the same question. Why don't you try to sound yourself, and why don't you try to be yourself on air?
Yeah, be as natural.
Be as natural as possible as you could. And I'm saying it with due respect. There was a time where someone once told me, do you realize that you have a voice for radio? And I said, am I that ugly? But with due respect, there's a lot of good-looking radio DJs out there, and we'd love to hear from you. And with due respect, we didn't mean to be offensive. Anything you want to add to that, Sarah?
No, it's just that it was really quite funny, and it was quite a hilarious moment. And we do understand that the radio DJs and stuff have to be exciting, dynamic, and things like that. But I suppose be as natural as possible, as you were saying.
Yeah, I mean, we love those voices. We do love them.
No, we do.
Sincerely do.
We do.
But I mean, I can recall, here in South Africa, we have Radio Lotus, which in the old days when we were growing up, it was Radio Lotus. Now it's called Lotus FM. And with due respect to the current generation of RJs or radio jockeys on that station, I mean, when we were growing up, those radio jock sounded so natural.
Yeah.
And when we went somewhere, and we heard them speak, and we suddenly realized, wow, this person is so and so from Radio Lotus.
Yes.
Now, if you hear the person speak, if you meet them somewhere casually, you'll never know it's that person because it's two different voices altogether, you know. So unless they MC in a function or something, and then they put on that persona and they bring that voice out, then you suddenly realize, oh wow, that's so and so. But if you speak to them normal any other time, you'll never know it's that person.
Some of them, it's not all, it's a handful of them. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, sorry, let me just go to the next lane. We're having to do a roundabout route because of road closures still from the flood.
It's still being fixed under construction.
So we're going on roundabout routes, which could be a straight line from where we live to the highway that we normally take to go where we want to go. We now have to do a full circle, sort of. But we don't mind the drive on us. It's Sunday now. Yeah. It's a Sunday afternoon. A leisurely Sunday afternoon drive. Yeah. As long as we don't hold up traffic and make people hoot at us, that's fine. Yeah. But anyway, so yeah, but I hope you guys can see the point that we're trying to make when it comes to radio jockeys and that so-called radio voice that they would normally use. And I'm not sure, maybe some of our viewers out there may have encountered that situation where you met someone and you had a good chat with them, and then suddenly they go on stage to MC a function, to be the program director and so forth, and suddenly you realize, wow, I was talking to that person, I didn't realize they were so and so, you know, because now that I listen to the voice, I realize that it's that person. And just a recommendation from my side to those radio DJs, and possibly, I know it's maybe too far gone for those of you who are already into it. You can't suddenly now start changing your voice to something else or suddenly be yourself, but maybe for those upcoming radio jockeys, try and be as natural as possible, and I think people would appreciate that, where bring out the best in your voice without having to change it. Yeah. Am I making sense? I don't know.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah, and it's with any aspect of life. Yes. You always read up, you always listen on inspirational videos, and the most common thing is be yourself.
Just be yourself.
Be yourself.
Yeah.
And maybe you're afraid that your natural voice is going to scare people away. But if you have a passion for it, learn how to use your voice in its most natural sort of way, but bringing out the best in it. Mm-hmm. Without having to say, oh, I'm Harnam and Serra, and you don't have to do that. I've seen it so often, and at times it does become annoying. So give it your best shot of trying to be yourself. As I said, it may be a bit too far gone for those existing guys who are already too far into it to make an extreme change and suddenly expose people to your natural voice. Yeah, I mean, they'll phone you and say, but you're an imposter if you suddenly do that.
True.
Yeah.
And then for some, it's become second nature. When you normal with your friends and stuff, it's fine. As soon as you go on air, I think automatically you get that radio voice. You know, some of them
it's natural.
Instinctive.
And, I mean, and for you can switch from the one to the next.
Yes.
So that's just my thoughts on the matter, and it came about because Sarah made us really laugh in the morning, and she made me do that, and I told her we're going to do a video about it. And she says, no, we don't have to do a video about it.
I was just telling him that.
And I said, no, it's something we could put out there just to see people's reaction and the responses we get to that. So we would love to hear from you.
And maybe someone can also have a few minutes of laughter as well, you know.
Yeah. So
just see the humor in it.
Yeah, and as I said, we're not doing this at the expense of radio
Yes.
jockeys. You guys do a good job, so don't get me wrong.
Yes, you guys make our lives so pleasurable because you know, especially when we're not at work and stuff, the radio, especially my house, the radio is on full time. I love it. I love the music. I love the DJ speaking, the information and the special offers and things like that. You know, radio, you know, it really keeps us going.
Yeah, but in any case, I'm also guilty, not in the voice part of it. I'm guilty, for example, with my name. What's the right pronunciation of my name?
Harnam.
Harnam,
yeah.
Yeah, but I anglicize it due to work, and it's so much, I think it's so much easier. It becomes Harnam. So I think I can see when it comes to people's voices as well. It has to suit the situation.
I suppose so.
Yeah.
Because...
I'm Harnam Shankumar.
Even myself.
You're listening to Harnam Shankumar.
When we're with our family.
Listening to Harnam Shankumar. But, you know, coincidentally, recently I've spoke at a few funerals recently.
Yeah.
And there was the one funeral where we had the big tragedy in our family. And after I spoke at the funeral and I went outside just to get some space because it was emotional. I mean, you know the one I'm speaking about.
Yes,
and
the accident.
And one of the relatives came and said, "Wow, you know, we always enjoyed your voice and stuff, but you know, when you're up there, you really, really sounded so. Your voice, the quality of that voice." And I said, "No, thank you for that." But out of place for
to get a compliment.
The context of the whole thing being a funeral. But sometimes we appreciate that kind of feedback.
But that was your natural voice. Whenever you speak to, it's your normal voice. It's not
but that's what I'm saying
Yeah.
to people. Don't over exaggerate your voice, because when people do end up speaking to you under normal circumstances, when you're not in that context,
when you're not giving a speech, when you're not on air,
they're going to be very disillusioned in the course of the conversation. They suddenly realize, hey, but that's not authentic. Yeah, that's the radio DJ we normally enjoy listening to.
Yeah.
And then you're going to burst their bubble. So don't do that to you, especially if you have a strong fan club. Don't ever do that to your listenership, and especially to those ardent fans. I know a lot of RJs do have a fan following.
Yeah,
we had a neighbor years back who lived with us. He grew up with us, and one thing I can tell about him, and if he's listening to this, I somehow doubt it because he doesn't subscribe to our channel, but I can give him credit. He was a guy who, as he grew up in poverty. I mean, you know the environment he grew up in.
I know.
And when you speak to him, he's got this quality voice. And he did become a radio jockey, an RJ.
Yes.
But then the radio station began restructuring, and he was one of those. And I think the radio fraternity now tries to not make stars out of people. I think because they find that when they have to chop down and change the radio station around, then people get into an uproar. Bring back so and so, and then they lose the listenership. So I think the radio station, they got into this pattern now of turning around RJs very quickly, which is sad, especially if someone wants to make this into a career. But
it's short-lived.
Yeah, but this particular RJ I'm speaking to, and I still chat to him on social media and so forth, because we don't live next door to one another. We've all moved on with our lives. But he's the one person I can tell you, when you speak to him in person, and if you speak to him, and if you hear him holding the mic in his hand, and if you listen to him on radio, it's the same voice. Obviously it becomes more expressive and so forth, but you can't mistake that voice if you're speaking to him in person, face to face. So give that thought, guys, the RJs who may be listening to this. And if you know of anybody who are RJs and you want to share this video to them, please do that. I would love to hear the comments and what they have to say about my thoughts and Sarah's thoughts. It all started off with Sarah this morning.
She's putting the blame on me, yeah?
No, it was funny, and it was true
funny,
because I mean, when you said that, it went back to that instance when I was interviewed on radio, and you know, the funny part of it is, the strangest part of it is, at that particular interview, when I had feedback from family who said, "Oh, well done on your interview on radio," and so forth, and even some of them at that time said, "Did you think of becoming a radio? Because you yourself sounded like a radio DJ."
Yes.
And I said, "No, thanks for that feedback. I mean, what more can you say?" But yeah, just food for thought, guys, that's all. But there is a humorous side to it when you think of it. Encountering someone on radio and then listening to them face to face, and then you suddenly realize they sound different. They don't really sound like what they sound like on radio. Anything you want to add before we close off, Sarah?
No, I'm fine, thanks.
Okay, we'd love to hear your comments, guys. I know some of you don't comment on our other videos, but on this particular video, please, we want to hear your thoughts. Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.